Hey there everybody, it's markcrilley. I'm back with another video. Today I want to give you all a sneak peek look inside my latest book, Manga Art. It doesn't come out until June 6th, but I want you to be the first people on earth to see the interior artwork by way of this video. Before we do that though, I want to sort of zoom in on the cover, talk a little bit about this. Some of you may notice that I did the inking of this illustration in a YouTube video some months back. Little did you know I was inking my cover art. Actually, I didn't even realize I didn't know this illustration would end up being the cover at that time, but it's kind of cool. You can see what it looks like with color. And also look at this gloss that they put on the cover. That is a really cool choice. I'm so glad that they did that selectively just on the illustration. It adds to that sort of glossy look of the Vespa there. But enough of the front cover. Let's go ahead and have a look inside. Now this is my first ever art book, which is to say it's filled with illustrations, most of which I created exclusively for this book, and they allowed me to do most of the layouts, that is to say to choose which illustrations I thought looked best together on the same page. And this first chapter is called Characters. Every illustration you see in this chapter is really presenting a different manga style character of some kind. Let's go ahead and have a look at another spread. Now most of the illustrations in the book were newly created for the book itself, but some of them do come from previously seen YouTube videos. This one I think some of you will recall. I did a large portion of it in a YouTube video, but I haven't shown the finished product until now. You might be a little surprised to see some of the choices that I made. Now, one of my goals with this book was to have a whole bunch of different styles contained within it. I almost sometimes wanted you to feel like you couldn't believe they were all done by the same guy, because some of them are quite dark, maybe a little disturbing. Other illustrations, very, very cute and cuddly. I really wanted to show the full range of possibilities when it comes to manga art. Now the second chapter in the book is devoted to illustrations relating specifically to Japan. Those of you who know me, you know that I've traveled extensively in Japan, have actually lived there for 2 years back when I was teaching English, fresh out of college. I did this illustration as a sort of tribute to the type of temple steps that you sometimes see that go up by the 100 until you reach the top of the hill. And you can see over here sort of preparatory work that I did as I was getting started on the illustration. Many of the illustrations in the book have this kind of preparatory work, and indeed the writing will explain very often the concept behind the work and a lot of the materials used. So there is a kind of an educational aspect to the whole book. As I said, I wanted to feature a lot of different styles in the book. This one is highly digital. People are always sort of asking, Mark, have you ever considered doing digital work? And this one really is almost 100% digital. I was very pleased with how it turned out, and it has a much more sort of sparse, minimalist quality to it than the type of work you usually see from me. Those of you who have been to Japan or are even just fans of Japanese culture, you will know all about the onsen or sento, the Japanese baths that go back for centuries. I wanted to do one illustration that was sort of a celebration of this aspect of Japanese culture. I'm very pleased with how this one turned out. It allowed me to sort of give you that feeling of how incredibly relaxing it is when you sit down in one of these baths of hot water. And I enjoyed getting the sort of reflections on the floor and little details like that. Now, with the book being called Manga Art, I wanted to make sure that at least some of the illustrations were done in a very traditional manga or anime-oriented style. This one paying tribute to a classic Japanese storytelling cliche, toast in mouth, late for school. Hang on, I've got another one that's a little bit similar. So this one is called Next to the Window, second seat from the back of the classroom. Something people see again and again in manga and anime. The main character seems always to be seated right next to the window, either in the very back or a second seat from the back of the room. Now I wanted to point out to you a little Easter egg. On the back board here you see names written. These are the names of students who did exceptional work that week. But over here we have the names of students who have failed to hand in their assignments. And right here you see Kuri Iri, Markcrilley, yes indeed. I took a little pot shot at myself, hidden in the background of this illustration. The third chapter in the book is devoted to sci-fi related illustrations. Those of you who know my work, you know I've always been fascinated with science fiction, and some of my stories have a pretty strong sci-fi twist to them. So that's what you're going to see in all the illustrations of this chapter. Here's a double-page illustration called 200 miles per hour. This one took quite a long time. I wanted to show you the original line art. This is ink on paper. So done traditionally, but everything else in the illustration is digital. So indeed, some of these illustrations do involve me pushing myself in the direction of digital artwork, and those of you who are fans of that type of stuff, I think you'll be pleased to see my progress here. Now, as I said, some of the illustrations have their origins in YouTube videos, but very rarely are they straight out of the video and into the book. Most often they are recreations, reinventions. Those of you who are familiar with the original video that this came from, you'll know that I changed the entire color of the robot, added in little details. Most often you're seeing a new version of these illustrations, and it'll be kind of fun for those of you who know the YouTube videos to compare and contrast between the video version and the book version. The fourth chapter in the book is devoted to what I call conceptual artwork. They are manga-style illustrations that have some sort of interesting concept behind them. This one, for example, is a kind of mashup of manga styles with 1950s Americana. Everything down to even the color scheme is meant to evoke the styles of the 1950s. And indeed, I think some of the most interesting illustrations are in this chapter. Let's have a look at another one. This illustration is called Street Fashion, and I kind of challenged myself to work in a different way, choosing colors I wouldn't normally use, just going for a completely different vibe as I tried to celebrate the street fashion of Tokyo. And indeed, the whole book is filled with me trying to push myself in new directions, challenge myself to create artwork in new ways. This one definitely has a conceptual aspect to it. I think I was almost doing a kind of a self-portrait here. The artist slowly chipping away at this long project. Even the creation of this book, in a way. This illustration can be seen as a metaphor for that. Some of you may remember last year I did a tour poster for the singer-songwriters Miko and Marie Digby. That poster was only available at their gigs. Until now, you can finally get a closer look at the illustration by way of this book. I asked their permission and they very kindly allowed me to put it in the book. Not only the poster itself, but some of the preparatory work as I proposed designs to them for approval. For the fifth and final chapter in the book, I decided to invent a new word, style play. It has its origins in the word cosplay. And my idea is that sometimes as an artist it's fun to take on the style of other artists, almost pretend to be a different artist from what you are. So you're going to see some really interesting illustrations in here as I play around with various types of styles that I'm not used to working in. Here I challenged myself to do a sort of 1950s style crime paperback, The Girl with the Gun, with, you know, just a little hint of manga stylings there, but you can see I really did try to make it look like it came from the 1950s. She knew it was a dangerous job, but she wanted to give it a shot. Sorry for that. Terrible pun there, but I really did enjoy this chapter, doing all these strange different types of illustrations. Let's have a look at another one. This is my tribute to Gustav Klimt, the great Austrian painter. I've long been an admirer of his work, but in a way I don't think I fully appreciated it until I made this illustration. It forced me to really study his work, to analyze the various decorative elements and the color scheme and so forth. If you want to learn about someone's style, I would highly encourage you to do a style play illustration, as I'm calling them. It's always a very, very educational experience. Here's my tribute to the illustration style of Calvin and Hobbes creator Bill Watterson. Did the whole thing using brush and ink and watercolors. Had a lot of fun doing this, and also sort of taking his style and mixing it with manga elements, Japanese cultural elements. It was kind of fun to bring these two worlds together into a single illustration. And the last one I'll show you today is my tribute here to Claude Monet, the great Impressionist painter, but also a tribute to Norman Rockwell again, who came up with this idea of the person admiring the painting in a museum. You get to do two different styles in the same illustration here, the sort of foreground world of the person in the museum, and then the background painting. This was all done digitally, actually. I did my best to make it look like oil paint. So yeah, this is my kind of two styles in one illustration. Alright, well that brings us to the end of the video. There are of course dozens and dozens of illustrations that I wasn't able to feature here today. There's more than 100 of them in all in the book. Like I said, most of them brand new, made just for this book. I wanted to give a shout out to Jeff Smith, the creator of the modern day classic comic book series Bone. He very kindly supported me with a quote on the back of the book, as well as Camilla Derrico and Svetlana Chomakova. Thanks to all three of them for supporting me that way, but I think it's time for me to kind of wind down this video. Big thank you to anyone who chooses to support me by pre-ordering this book. I've put a link in the description of this video. Otherwise, I'll be letting you know again when it comes out on June 6th. But let's go ahead and wind this video down. I want to thank you all for watching it. I really hope you enjoyed it. And I'll be back with another one real soon.